and welcome to MLB This Week. It's your weekly talk show talking about all the stories of the past week in baseball from around the world. And my name is Rich Baxter.
And I'm Gary Mack.
And welcome to yet another edition of the show here where we talk all about baseball from around the world. And Gary, you have some information about a lot of our audio listeners as well.
Well, Rich, I'm so happy to announce that MLB This Week has gone global. We have, I was looking at some stats that I happened to get and found out that we have some listeners in Europe and Asia, like I said, Europe, like France, United Kingdom, Spain, and Canada, and of course the USA. So very exciting news. The show is catching on a little bit, and let's hope it continues to grow.
Yeah, really, that's awesome, and we extend a hearty welcome to all our listeners around the world, especially in Europe and across the states from New York to California. And we want to let you know as well, you can see our show as we tape it live. You can just go to our YouTube page, and it's MLB This Week. And you can see on Sunday nights at 8 p.m. Eastern Time when we do our show, you can actually take part of the show and take part in it with us, chat back and forth with us with questions and comments. And it's really interactive these days, Gary. A few years ago, we couldn't go live with a video like this, but we'd like to invite all of our podcast listeners to join in on the video end of it as well.
It's certainly true, Rich. The technology is amazing that we can do something like this sitting miles apart from one another and without thousands and thousands of dollars of equipment, and actually do something that's throughout the world.
Yeah, I remember when I first got into podcasting probably about 8 years ago. This was just a dream to be able to do something like this, and of course it's made possible with Google Plus and the Google Hangouts that they offer now, and they make it available for free. So we're taking advantage of this. And Gary, while I have our listeners' attention with regards to podcasts, and check out our website at MLBThisWeek.com. You can check out the podcast gear that Gary and I use for the show. And you can actually even purchase it through the link. And every time you purchase something, of course, it helps the show. So we appreciate all of our listener support. And if you want to start your own podcast or thinking about doing something like that, you can see a lot of the equipment that Gary and I use and purchase it right from our site at MLBThisWeek.com.
And if you'd like to hear an audio version of the show, if you don't have time to catch the video, you can hear the audio at MLBThisWeek.podomatic.com or on Stitcher Smart Radio. So another way to catch the show, Rich.
A lot of great places there. I love Stitcher Smart Radio, and of course we're all over the internet as well. Coming to iTunes soon, and of course on YouTube you can see us on video. Well, Gary, you have one of our top stories of the week here. Another Tommy John surgery?
Another Tommy John surgery, Rich. This has been the continuing story of this show, you might say, talking about the injuries to pitchers and stuff with Tommy John surgery. And this week the word comes that Los Angeles Dodgers pitcher Chris Withrow will likely need Tommy John surgery because of a torn UCL in a pitching elbow. Now, he's been a little hesitant about it, so he's going to get another opinion on that. But really, this piece really is to do about Dr. James Andrews, who wrote a recently released position statement about the epidemic, as they called it. And the paper was published by the American Sports Medicine Institute, an organization co-founded by Andrews, which has become the go-to think tank for pitching injuries. And more than 40 major and minor leaguers have needed Tommy John surgery since February, Rich. So the epidemic tag just isn't hyperbole. And, of course, in this paper, Dr. Andrews points out a few recommendations to try to reduce the risk. Of course, there's no sound answer yet. And some of the things he puts in there is do not always pitch with 100% effort. I'll just go through them real quick. Flat ground throwing drills and bullpen sessions should not always be done at maximum effort. And be wary of pitching in Winter League Baseball because the body needs time to recover and build strength. And pitchers with high ball velocity are at increased risk of injury. The higher the ball velocity, the more important to follow the guidelines above. And Rich, we've talked about this off and on through this first 10 plus episodes of the show. And they seem to be narrowing in on different causes and different solutions to the problem. And it all comes down to trying to reduce maximum effort. And look, some of the great pitchers of all time never really threw at 100%. I mean, there is a certain control you have to have, and apparently that's being lost as people see that they can light up this radar gun there, that they can make big bucks.
Yeah, absolutely. And the part that I like the best is about this 100% effort clause, because it seems like a lot of the pitchers who have been affected this year are younger guys that are going out and throwing everything they have on every pitch. And of course they don't want to lob the ball in there, but they're effectively throwing their arms out way before they should be, or develop another pitch. But yeah, I think that's probably the top condition for these athletes to avoid, and stop throwing the ball like every pitch will be your last pitch.
And exactly, don't try to throw every ball through the backstop either.
Yep, so we'll have to keep an eye on this story, as you have been all year long. And now that you mention it, I don't remember a time when I've heard as many pitchers as this affected in this way.
I think this is the worst case of area of this particular injury. I think this is the worst season that they've ever had with that. But let's hope we can make it through the rest of the year with nobody, and especially for our next story, Rich, the All-Star voting updates are out, and you've got some stats for us on that.
Yeah, it looks like the All-Star voting is well underway here. And of course, a lot of the favorites that usually end up winning this every year are the superstars of baseball. And this year is no different. They update this about every week until about a few days before voting closes up. Here, of course, the All-Star game. Are you still there, Gary?
Yes, I'm still here.
Oh, sorry about that. Of course, until the All-Star game on Tuesday, July 15th at Target Field in Minneapolis. But leading the voting in the National League so far, over at catcher, it's Yadier Molina for the Cardinals. And at first base is, and this is a close race here so far, Adrian Gonzalez of the Dodgers has an edge about 40,000 as of a couple days ago over Freddie Freeman from the Braves. And then, of course, at second base, Chase Utley's got a huge lead. He's having a great year for the Phillies, 509,000 votes. He's got about 200,000 vote lead on the next guy, D. Gordon, for the LA Dodgers. Going across the shortstop, Troy Tulowitzki, no surprise here, he's got one of the most highest vote totals at 745,000 already. I'm thinking he's a shoo-in, as he's beating the next nearest guy at 500,000 more votes than Brandon Crawford of the Giants. And then at third base, we have a guy I haven't heard too much about, Nolan Arenado, possibly. Arenado?
I think it's Arenado.
Arenado, okay, thank you for that pronunciation there. 318,000 votes for him. And, of course, out in the outfield, there's always a slew of great players. Leading the top three, Charlie Blackmon, Andrew McCutchen, and Ryan Braun of the Brewers. So a lot of nice top stars of the game there.
And I guess you can't argue with any of the picks this year so far. Leading as a Met, I'd like to see David Wright, of course, up there, and I'd love to see Juan Lagares make the outfield squad. But other than that, there's really nobody skipping in there that doesn't seem to deserve it. Even Charlie Blackmon, he got off to a great start, so it's hard to say that he doesn't deserve it. But Chase Utley, as you said, is having a great year, and certainly deserves that, and may even should, he had a pretty good year last year, but maybe he should even have some consideration for the comeback player of the year the way he's playing.
He sure does. And you mentioned David Wright for the Mets, Gary. He has New York behind him. So New York fans, you want to see David Wright in this year's All-Star game. He's still very close to Arenado from the Rockies. He's only 50,000 votes away at this time. So New York, get behind your player and start voting for David Wright there.
That's for sure.
Well, let's switch over to the American League leaders here, Gary. For the American League in the catcher's position, Matt Wieters from the Orioles has a commanding lead, about 180,000 to the next Brian McCann of the Yankees for All-Star voting for catcher. And of course, that could change. Of course, New York has a big voting pool, so those Yankee fans get behind McCann, he could be going to the All-Star game this year. First base, no surprise, Miguel Cabrera leading the way for the Tigers so far. Second base is Ian Kinsler for the Tigers. This is a very close race so far. Robinson Cano for the Mariners, 350,000. Kinsler has 356,000, so that's a close race there at second.
Yeah, the ex-Yankee Cano is still drawing the votes, and Rich, the only thing sometimes New Yorkers are a little apathetic and don't get out there to vote all the time. So, and McCann's really. He started off pretty good, but now he's kind of been struggling, and even played a game at first base because they needed to have somebody play there one game, and did pull it pretty good. But it'll be interesting to see who's over at shortstop, Rich.
At shortstop, no surprise here, a fan favorite, and it's his last season, so he says. None other than Derek Jeter for the New York Yankees.
Well, I'm not so sure if he deserves it or not, but I can understand it's his last year, and he's gonna he'll be on it one way or the other, whether he gets voted on or not.
Yeah, that's for sure. But it looks like the fans are leaning towards Jeter. As you said, he might not deserve it, but the fans want to see him in that game, and he's leading the next nearest player, Alexei Ramirez of the White Sox, by about 175,000 votes here. As of May 28th, this vote was taken. Over at third base, it's Josh Donaldson of the Athletics and Evan Longoria of the Tampa Bay Rays. They're running neck and neck there at third base. And no surprise, the second highest vote getter of all Major League Baseball players for the outfield, Mike Trout, at 764,000 votes so far. He's practically a shoo-in there for the outfield for the American League.
South Jersey kid, I know that makes you happy, following his career.
Yes, indeed. He's an exciting player. To be honest with you, I didn't really follow him in the local paper, although they did feature a lot of articles about him over his high school career, but you generally get a lot of that in a local paper, so I didn't really know about him too much until he made the big leagues.
Mm-hmm.
And then our local paper here, which is the Atlantic City Press in the area of Millville and Atlantic City, started to follow him as soon as the Angels brought him up, and before he became the superstar that he is today. So, they always followed him day by day, and they do that with a lot of young players that come out of South Jersey as well. So he's top spot out there in the outfield. Jose Bautista, close second at 675,000 votes. A lot of people jumping on Bautista. And then Jacoby Ellsbury, the ex-Red Sox, now a Yankee. I never thought I'd be mentioning him as a Yankee. It's very strange that he would jump and go right to the Yankees like that, don't you think?
Well, cash does a lot of things. You put that contract with all those zeros after a certain number, and people don't care about loyalties as much as they used to years and years ago. Like Jackie Robertson got traded to the Giants, and he retired because he refused to play for the Giants. So that was loyalty back then. Now it's all about the Benjamins, I guess.
All about the Benjamins. You said it right. But Yankees and Red Sox are like fire and water. They don't mix together. It's just amazing that a player would jump from that type of atmosphere into the Yankees. But well, I guess you said it right. Money talks, and BS walks. So.
And there have been others, but I think he's the first. Well, I shouldn't say the first, but I don't know if he went directly. For instance, Wade Boggs ended. Or I should say played for the Yankees for a few years, and Roger Clemens, but Clemens didn't go directly from Boston. He went to Toronto and then came to the Yankees as a free agent. So there's been others, but this direct connection, as if you will, he's one of the first that I can remember. So.
This is what men do to try to get.
It's very sorry about that. I had a little audio difficulty here, but yeah, you're right. It's just not the same era. Players before many years ago would keep their loyalties to a team to a certain degree, and they certainly wouldn't go with the enemy, so to speak.
Right.
Some of these teams have natural enemies, and the Red Sox and the Yankees seem to be about the top two that I could think of. Well, anyway, moving on to our next story here, and that was a story that you just heard a little bit about, Gary, audio. I had a web page open here, and Big Papi got extremely mad at David Price for beaning him yesterday, and wanted to charge the mound.
Well, those are two big guys, so I don't know. Though I'd have to give Big Papi the edge in the weight department, but it's something you really don't see a lot nowadays. But there is a lot of bad blood between Tampa Bay and the Red Sox, so that could be one of the things involved in that. And as you said, he beamed him, and so and just put the two together, they're like oil and water. So.
Yeah, that's for sure. And I had a video to show our listeners that are watching tonight's podcast here, but it did not cooperate with me. It was basically a Big Papi interview, and he still looked mad after the game, and he looks like an intimidating character. I don't think I'd like to run into him in a dark alley when he's upset.
That's for sure, Rich. Nor would I.
Yeah, he almost looks like a wrestler.
Yes, sir. He certainly does.
In conjunction with being a baseball player, but so Big Papi did not get out of the way of that pitch either. And a lot of these guys are so used to standing in the box. If a ball comes in at them, they just don't move anymore. And that's not the way baseball was always played. Most of the time, a guy's going to get out of the way of a baseball. He's going to bite the dust, as they used to call it, or get away from it any way they could. But a lot of these big-name superstars, Ryan Howard included, you'll never see him bail out of the box and bite the dust on a ball. The ball's just going to hit him, and that's just the way some of these players are. They dare these pitchers to come inside on them, and I got to side with the pitchers on some of these plays.
Yeah, it's something. It's an old the old brushback is something that you don't see much anymore. And if you do, I think part of the problem is that they get warned right away if it's too close, or if the umpire feels that they're throwing at somebody, and then the other team doesn't get a chance to retaliate. So it's a different game than when we first got involved with it years and years ago as kids, and um, I don't know if it's necessarily for the better, as a lot of the old traditions are still there, but there is a lot of changes, more specialties and pinch hitters and pitching, bullpen, relief pitching, and we didn't have a DH when we got involved. So the game's evolved, and I guess you have to evolve with it, and just realize that these things are things of the past that they don't do anymore.
That's for sure. And as the game changes, so do the players. A lot of these players today are not like they used to be. Guys like Nolan Ryan made his living on coming in close and inside to players. He called it a bow tie pitch, just to think twice about hitting the ball possibly, and sometimes it worked. So the pitchers of old, maybe some of these new pitchers have to get in on these things, learn a little bit from the quote-unquote older guys. So.
Well, Rich, I probably even before your time, it was a little bit before my time even, there was a pitcher for the Yankees called Ryan Duran, and Ryan Duran would come in and he had these thick glasses on, pardon me, and he would throw the ball 100 miles an hour, and he'd throw it over the catcher's head, over the backstop, any other team's dugout. I mean, when he would warm up, he would just, he didn't know where the ball was going to go, and guys were nervous to get in there. But a lot of times, some people wondered whether it was an act or not, because they'd get in the batter's box and he'd throw three right by you. So, but he had them so intimidated, and just don't see that kind of gamemanship. And I think free agency has a lot to do with it, because guys have played with other guys so much. They know each other. They play in these World Baseball Classics. They play in the All-Star games. And there just doesn't seem to be the hatred that there used to be in the old days for certain things.
Yeah, that's for sure. Well, Big Papi has declared it's a war, he said, after the Red Sox actually rallied and won the game against the Tampa Bay Rays, 3-2 in the 10th inning on that game night. That they had this little fracas here, but that's baseball. So we're going to keep an eye on this story as the Red Sox play the Tampa Bay Rays again, and who knows, maybe these two teams will meet in the playoffs, and then this will really take a life of its own. Well, Gary, you have an interesting story about a player, believe it or not, who ended up being robbed.
I certainly do. And Rich, before we get to that, I just want to take a minute to remind everybody to check us out at MLBThisWeek.com and check out the video, or at Stitcher Smart Radio to check out the audio, and to check out Rich's great blog, Fightin' Phillies, at FightinPhillies.com. And check out my podcast, Mets Musings, at MetsMusings.com. And you can check out all of baseball podcasts that Rich has put together on one great site, and that's at BaseballTalkRadio.com, or BaseballPodcast.net still works, the link. And there's just podcasts there from the Cardinals, the Brewers, soon to be the Yankees, I believe, right, Rich?
Yeah, River Avenue Blues will be joining us there on BaseballTalkRadio.com within a week or so. And as Gary said, there's podcasts from all over the world. So if you're listening to our podcast from Europe, there's a couple of shows on the site you might be interested in, the European Baseball Talk. So check it out, BaseballTalkRadio.com. You can find a lot of shows that you may have not stumbled across on the internet. And as Gary said, check it out. Follow us on Twitter at Baseball Podcasts, and also follow our show here, MLB This Week, at MLB This Week on Twitter as well.
Well, Rich, you mentioned about a player getting robbed, and it was Hunter Pence, who said his customized motor scooter, which he rides a few blocks to the stadium for every home game, was stolen outside a restaurant on San Francisco's waterfront. I think it was last Sunday night. And the fans have been fascinated by this scooter since Pence arrived in a trade from Philadelphia. And the Giants even gave out bobbleheads with him on this scooter. It is some sort of a customized scooter, and you can see the picture up there if you're watching the video. And Pence said he parked the scooter in an out-of-the-way ramp outside a restaurant where cooks come in and go out of the restaurant, and never thought anybody would take it. He said he has no ill will towards the city, saying he's been overwhelmed by the outpouring of support on Twitter to find his lost scooter. Now, there is an update to the story. Apparently, a mysterious stranger who claimed he persuaded his thieving friends to return Hunter Pence's scooter collected a reward Thursday for a good deed that may not even have occurred. The proprietors of Lefty O'Doul's restaurant and cocktail lounge in San Francisco offered $200, 2 drinks, and 2 meals, with no questions asked to the person who returned the motorized scooter stolen last week. The scooter became a Twitter sensation after Pence tweeted about its theft. John Fair, the manager of Lefty, said a man called shortly after the reward was offered and said his friends had taken a two-wheeler and that he had badgered them into returning it. Sure enough, the beloved scooter was returned to the Giants clubhouse Wednesday after someone brought it to the San Francisco Police Department. So Hunter Pence was robbed, and but now, after twittering about this scooter, he has since been returned to him. And I would suggest that you get a chain, a chain and a lock, so the next time you go out to eat, you can chain that baby up.
Yeah, and if you're watching the YouTube version of this show, I suggest he take those headphones off as well when he's using that scooter. I've driven around San Francisco, and it's very, very crowded with tourists and traffic, and even trolleys running across the street. So I don't think that's a good role model for kids using a motorized scooter with big headphones on.
Unless he's very close to the ballpark and he takes the back streets.
Yeah, and believe it or not, right around that ballpark, it's very industrial. It's a lot of things going on. So hopefully Hunter will be okay with his headphones on as he rides that scooter around now that he seems to have it back. So I never knew Pence was a big scooter guy, even when he played in Philadelphia.
Apparently so. Apparently so. And Rich, you know, this weekend our two teams have been going at it pretty well, and I don't know if they've broken any Major League records, but boy, they played some long games, 2 14-inning games, and today an 11-inning game. And your Phillie Phanatic was very busy this weekend.
Yes, he was, and of course the Phanatic, for a lot of the people that don't know, he's the Phillies mascot, but I'm not sure if you can see this on the screen on the YouTube video, Gary.
I'm not seeing. Didn't see it, Rich.
You on it yet? Here, I'm trying to get a picture up on the screen for our YouTube watchers, but of course sometimes this can be a little cantankerous when we're using the Google Plus page. How about now, Gary? How's it looking now?
We have a page up there. You go.
Okay, so all of our YouTube listeners and watchers here on the podcast, they can see what the Phanatic did to, quote-unquote, a Mets fan in the audience. As you can see, it's probably the world's biggest box of popcorn was dropped on him here, and there's another actual scene of it, and I think we have a video of this as well, if it will work for us here. And of course there's a little commercial for Chromecast.
Read this.
And it looks like it's going to take about 14 seconds for this to play. So I'll just turn it down for a second until the video comes on. But basically, the Phanatic crept up on a fan and dumped a huge box.
Oh, this act never gets old. The Phanatic having an altercation with a Mets fan. He decides to douse him with a little popcorn.
So, wow, what a neat showing there. And you can see the slow-mo replay here. Wow, that's a mound of popcorn.
That was a lot. I saw that live, and boy, that was a ton of popcorn. And the guy looked like he had an empty box himself. He was trying to get some popcorn in that box of his so he could get some freebie out of it.
Yeah, that's for sure. And that was quite a skit from the Phanatic. He comes up with some good ones now and again. And of course, that fan was not really a fan, but part of the show. So, some entertaining games as well with the Phillies there. Little known fact here, if you're a Phillies Mets fan, with their rivalry, the Phillies, first time ever since 1883, and the Mets played 2 back-to-back games of 14 innings each. And that was the first time for the Philadelphia Phillies in franchise history. That goes back, like I said, 1883, Gary.
They are certainly, they've played a lot of innings. This is a 5-game set. The one on Monday is making up a rainout. And the 4-game set completed today. Let's see, they played, 28, 39, 48 innings in the 4-game set. So they averaged 12 innings a game in the 4 games so far, and one more left to go, the makeup game tomorrow. But just incredible, some good bullpen and poor hitting, I guess, and some base running mistakes and errors left and right. And but an interesting series, and it almost makes you think: are they 2 equal teams, but are they equally bad or equally good? It's hard to tell at this point. But both still in the hunt because the race is so tight in the division.
Yeah, they're not too far off the pace, but I would kind of err on the side of them being bad teams. But they're still close, so they can turn it around. So that's the good thing. With the Phillies and the Mets. And you have another interesting Mets. They set a record here, apparently.
When I saw this story, I didn't know whether I was going to do this on my show or this show, and I said I could probably do it on both because they're recorded days apart. But the Mets have set a Major League record for last names with a lowercase d. All on one roster at one time with Travis d'Arnaud, Jacob deGrom, and Matt Dendecker. In a post to ESPN, Paul Lucas from Uniwatch, I should say, writes, 3 primary schools of thought have emerged from these discussions. One that believes player names on jerseys should always be all caps, one that loves the lowercase letters, and a compromise position that advocates for the use of small caps instead of lowercase letters. Since MLB doesn't print lowercase lettering, the Mets had to create a custom lowercase d for use on the jerseys of d'Arnaud, deGrom, and Dendecker this season. Last year, they just used an uppercase P turned upside down because they did not have a lowercase d. So, and it did look a little funny last year with the. In fact, it still looks like an uppercase P, unless it's the picture from last year. I don't know, but so the Mets set a record with the most lowercase D's in the last name on the roster in 1 year.
It's pretty interesting. I saw Dendecker, and I looked twice at the name, and it's a lowercase D-E-N and then a capital D-E-K-K-E-R, and you got to take a double take. And then, as you said, Travis d'Arnaud used to play with the Phillies. He came up in the Phillies system, so they acquired him. I wonder if this is a move by management to pick up these players like that.
I don't know. And DeGrom, who pitched, I think it was yesterday, and he just got called up to the team, and he's looked very well, but pitched in bad luck. He's pitched 4 games. He's got an ERA below 2, and yet he hasn't won a game yet. So it's just pitched in bad luck where they cannot hold the runs for him, the bullpen. But yeah, it's a strange thing, and leave it to the Mets.
Yeah, that's for sure. Very odd there, but still interesting nonetheless. Story you might not have heard on the general media, but you heard it here on MLB This Week. Well, Gary, that'll lead us into our final story of the night here already, as time permits here. And it's a story that I think I wanted to do last week, but didn't get a chance to, or 2 shows ago. And let's see if my screen share works for our viewers. You have to let me know if that is on yet for our viewers, Gary.
See, something was up there, and
it disappeared.
No, and there it is again.
It's up.
And it's gone.
Oh, gosh. Well, it's not going to work for our YouTube viewers, unfortunately, but I'll have to just read it for them anyway. This story is about the challenges. Of course, this year was the first year that the MLB has the video replay in effect. And on a baseball website called www.baseball-reference.com, you have to put the dash in there to get to the site. You can look up all of the 2014 challenges. They categorize each challenge and log them, and you can break them down by individual team and by manager. So so far in 2014, and this is updated as of before the start of play on June 1st, 2014, which is when we're doing the show here. So this will be from the day before up through the end of the day on Saturday night. So far, there's been 406 challenges by MLB teams with this new video replay, and 189 of the 406 calls have been overturned. That number is 46.6%, so almost, give or take a little bit, but almost about 50% of the calls that are challenged are being overturned, Gary.
I wouldn't. Well, I guess they're not making the decision unless they think they have a chance to have it overturned, and I don't know what that says about the umpiring or not.
Well, it's plays like close plays at first, for example. How many times do we used to see a guy, oh man, he beat that play, but he was called out by the ump? But it used to be that an ump's call was final. He was called out, players would protest, they'd play a replay, and it would look like the guy was safe, obviously, but you know, calls like that used to stand all the time in baseball, and I guess if the umpiring crew realized that they really made a mistake, they try to make it up somewhere else. So this video replay has sort of changed the field, so to speak, on that matter. But so far, let's see, by individual team, I'm going to sort that here, and let's see who has the most challenges so far here, if I can find it. And of course, sometimes this cooperates and sometimes it doesn't.
That's live.
Yeah. Well, it looks like it's not going to cooperate right now. Let's see here. Oh, here we go. The most challenges by any team, believe it or not, is the Chicago Cubs at 21 challenges on this season so far. And that's a team I didn't really think would have that many challenges, but apparently they've been in some close plays, Gary.
Yeah, apparently so, and I'm a little surprised at that myself.
And I'll go right down the list. Tampa Bay Rays at 19 challenges, Toronto Blue Jays at 18, Pittsburgh Pirates at 16, Detroit Tigers 15. They're tied with the Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim, who also have 15. We go all the way down to the bottom of the list here. The bottom 3 teams with the fewest challenges are all tied at 7. The Baltimore Orioles, the Boston Red Sox, and the St. Louis Cardinals all only have 7 challenges all season long.
That's amazing.
So yeah, this website will break down the most successful team that have challenged plays is the Miami Marlins. 83%.
Wow.
The plays that they have challenged, and that's been 12, have been successful in challenges. So 10 out of 12, or 83%, have been successfully challenged by them. Second place, the New York Yankees at 81%. So these teams either have the best video coverage where they're getting directly to the manager and telling them, yeah, go ahead and challenge that play. Of course, you could see that with the Yankees. They have a great audio-video set up there at the stadium. But here's the lowest for you, Gary, at 25%. Only 25% of the plays that they challenged were successfully overturned, and 2 teams are tied in that, the Arizona Diamondbacks and the Cincinnati Reds, down there at the bottom, at 25% rate there.
Well, I guess Cincinnati's got a rookie manager, so maybe that's got something to do with it. I don't know. And Kirk Gibson, I don't know. Maybe he's just not listening to the video guy. But I'm curious to know, where are our teams in that whole mix there, Rich?
Well, let me look up the New York Mets here. Let's see how many challenges they actually have. Not too many, at 9. The Phillies, I think they'll have a few more than that, and they're probably in the top 8, I would say. The Phillies have 13 challenges so far. Interesting, the Phillies only have a 53% success rate with their challenges, which a little bit above half. That's about the way they're playing. They're about a 500 ball club anyway. And the Mets with 44%. They've challenged 9 plays, and 4 have been successful already. So,
all right, well.
But if you look at payroll, now the Phillies are $168 million this year, and the Mets are at a bargain $80 million. So I'd rather own the Mets this year.
Well, there is that, but if you were in this town,
Yeah.
I think more money should be spent right away, even if it may not have been for good players. But that's this town.
Yes, indeed. Well, thanks for listening to this edition of MLB This Week. It's been another great show, Gary. I love doing this show, and I look forward to next week's show.
As usual, I do myself too, so everybody have a great week.
All right, and thanks for listening to MLB This Week. Check out our website at MLBThisWeek.com for